How's it going, buddy? Happy Monday, and congrats to you on your second big long shot of a row, and all the other Discord members that were also on Big Sepp Straka. Hell of a shout, my friend. 70-1.
It's nice to get some wins early because they become more difficult as the year goes on. Yeah, and we don't have a lot of time to enjoy it because we have a Wednesday start for Torrey Pines.
Yeah, we do. So the Wednesday start with Torrey will not change a thing for us in terms of our output. But just to give a quick schedule reminder and briefing, we will have a back-to-back as well as the National College Football Championship tonight. We're going right before the National Championship. And then my hope is that we'll have everything wrapped up at least by the second half of the game. But we got to fit everything in on a short week. We'll do Steven Capper at 7, and then Brian and Jeff at 8. And then I will do my first ownership run through on the sheet late tonight as opposed to Tuesday morning. I think the ownership's going to be kind of soft on a first run through. Yeah. I'm going to do my best. The pricing's been out for like an hour. So we'll talk through some of our ownership predictions, but give yourself some leeway on ownership this week because we're essentially getting 24 hours to try to make predictions on who are going to be the most popular plays, but we'll do our best and dive into it on this show. And then tomorrow we will do core, another ownership update around noon Eastern, and then the Ball Knowers Premium Show, which has been become one of our most unhinged and fun hours of the week. So we got everything in there as scheduled. And I don't know, man, I guess I want to start here in terms of the news drop that we're going to Torrey twice in 3 weeks. A golf course that my love-hate relationship to has been fairly well documented. What's the initial reaction on Torrey as a choice for the signature event as a replacement to Riviera?
I think it depends on the course conditions, right? I mean, if they can get this, I assume it's going to be South course. I assume they're going to let the rough grow out. It's going to be harder, hopefully. I mean, if they want to give us a Torrey Pines U.S. Open type week, I think that would be great. A little concerned about the health of Scotty and Xander and these guys, because if those two aren't here, it's a completely different event.
Yeah, I would say I feel the same way. I think that setup is everything here, in my opinion. And I understand the logistical argument. I also think that we have been so conditioned by the PGA Tour to accept mediocrity that everyone is now kind of just like, yeah, this was hard. 2 weeks at Torrey, almost back to back, whatever. And I think a lot of that is because the PGA Tour has done the bare minimum for years and years, that our expectations for what they can do on short notice are just like shot, So in the past, I think I probably would have said, wow, this is a super cool opportunity. Like, the West Coast is littered with cool and interesting venues. Like, let's take this opportunity to maybe go to San Francisco. Like, how cool would it be to get Harding Park back in the mix or Olympic Club back in the mix? But at the end of the day, we now know that the PGA Tour is just never going to do that. So I think under the circumstances, my opinion is, well, okay, it could be a lot worse. At least they're not going back-to-back weeks in Phoenix. And as you mentioned, at least with Torrey, you have more setup options, right? Like, I would really, really encourage them to try and be different here. So I have been to a U.S. Open at Torrey Pines, and I have been to the Farmers Open at Torrey Pines every year for the last 4 years. The golf course that they play U.S. Open week is vastly different than the golf course that they play for the Farmers Insurance Open. And it's really not that steep of a hill to climb. to get it closer to the golf course that they played US Open week. Like you basically just tuck the pins a little bit more, maybe water the greens a little bit less, and grow out the rough a little bit more. And suddenly you have an event that is won at 6 under par instead of 13 under par. Now, that style of golf isn't necessarily, in my opinion, the most interesting style to watch. It's basically just turns into the most extreme it's like Winged Foot, right? Like it basically just turns into the most extreme version of hack it out golf, a true distance and long iron fest. But if we're going to get a true distance and long iron fest, then at least like let's find out who the biggest boy is, right? Like I would at least I mean, the US Open down the stretch at Torrey Pines, for all the knock that I give Torrey Pines, the US Open down the stretch at Torrey Pines is like Rory, Louis, Rahm, Colin, Bryson. Like if we're going to get the most extreme version of hack it out, monotonous, drive heavy long iron play, at least give us that and do not give us like 13 under at the Farmers again.
Yeah, that was such a tremendous event because again, like you had a guy like Harris English post early, and people, I mean, maybe they remember, but I mean, Rahm had to finish with those 2 putts on 17 and 18 to win by 1. So, yes, Torrey as a U.S. Open course is, I mean, honestly, one of my favorites. I just think there's a lot that can go wrong. The par fives are important, but you can also screw them up really easily, and you don't see that quite as much this week, obviously.
The thing that I will say is like, this is just a complete nuke to Farmers on the way out. Like what is the point of this week at all? And I think but if I was Farmers right now, I'd be furious. Like I have been a 4-year plus supporter of the Farmers Insurance Open. I have bought a ticket to the Farmers Insurance Open every year for the last 4 years. I'm not going to San Diego this weekend. Why would I go to San Diego this weekend? Why wouldn't I just wait? Why wouldn't I just wait 2 weeks and go to a signature event here? Like, I think Farmers is on the way out anyway, but it's kind of a bummer that, and I understand they had to announce it, but they kind of announced it when they did. And then you saw some more withdrawals. And I think it's just a mess for Farmers on the way out. Like,
Absolutely.
I don't know what the value is of this week whatsoever, and how you get up for it.
No, I know. Well, I mean, I guess I would say there's a few guys in here who are not in the signature events yet, right? Like for them, that's sort of what this is. But yeah, for the sponsors, for the tour, it's just another event.
I think so. And I think now at the top of the board this week. Well, actually, any closing thoughts on Amex before we do Torrey? Like you hit Sep. It was a tough watch, man. I gotta say, I was pretty more locked into.
I didn't watch a shot. I was
pretty more locked into football. Really long. Not going to do the whole pace of play thing here, but I think it's a pretty tough ask. When
no, I know, and I mean it's not surprising, but that's what I was noticing. You know, I was just on the Bet365 tracker most of Sunday, and like every time he finished a hole, it was like 20 minutes before Seth hit another shot. I was like, what the hell is going on? Yeah, pace of play seems like an issue. Those golf courses just don't stand up. Like, I don't know what they're going to do. Because, like, I like the stadium course. I think it's exciting sometimes. It has some elements. But, like, it's just another week where these guys are shooting 27 under par. It just doesn't stand up anymore.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you had more success than me and the Discord had more success than me. I've gotten the winning score of the golf tournament right every single week this year to start the season. Like I do not, I actually think that this is like the most fine-tuned and the strongest my process has ever been. And the effort that I put into breaking down golf courses, I do not know how to pick a player to save my life right now. Like I wouldn't, there's not a single thing that I would change about how I broke down the golf course. And how I broke down the golf course, like if you were to pivot off of one guy, then it basically like I was thinking about this and it's like, okay, well, if my argument would have been to play Justin Thomas over Sung J M, that would have also taken me off like 5 other guys that did work for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like I know Tori like the back of my hand. I had a huge $100 single entry sweat there last year. And I feel really, really good about this week, but holy shit, man. I need to talk this through with you because I'm not in my head about, I feel like I know this golf course so well, and I feel so good about what is going to happen at this golf event. I'm so in my head about like what players to choose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like, obviously, I've had some success with the outrights, but in terms of DFS, I've just picked the wrong guy at the top the last few weeks.
Yeah, me too. Me too,
the
man.
Century, I picked JT over Colin last week. I took Sungjae over JT. At Sony, I was on Benny On. I was on Tom Kitt. Like, just haven't done well at the top. So it should be easier this week because I think we'll talk about Aberg a lot, but like he's cheap. Pricing is soft. Like, that's one spot you can just lock into your single entry team this week.
Yeah, but I thought that about Xander at Century, and I thought that at Sungjae at Amex. Corey Connors hadn't missed a cut in 2 years before missing the cut at the Sony.
True.
And had amazing course history and was playing great.
Like, stupid sport.
So anyway, let's talk about the top of the board. So we have no Morikawa this week with the WD. We have Ludwig and Hideki at the top. I'm actually a little surprised that Ludwig's $100 more expensive than Hideki. And I think that he will get more ownership than Hideki as well. I think people have kind of had their time in the sun with Hideki, and obviously the steam is already building with this being Ludwig's time. I understand myself being a big contributing factor to that as well. But how would you assess the top of the board this week?
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, models, I think, will probably like Hideki a little bit more. But yeah, like you said, people are going to click Ludwig. I mean, they may click both. And like we'll talk about it. There's plenty of value down below. But I think when you're talking about sort of birdie upside, you're talking about off the tee game, he comes to mind here more than Hideki. Not to mention he finished 9th here last year, finished 5th at the Century. I just think he's a guy that people want to be ahead of this year, not behind. And with Hideki, we got the win. People probably don't want to chase that quite as much.
I got to say, maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but one of the things I was tracking last week was how well the guys that I was super, super heavy on at the Sony performed the next week at the Amex, and how quick I was to hop off. Like, Sepp Straka was a core play for me at the Sony. I had zero exposure to him at the Amex. Billy Horsch. Yeah, it is a problem. Like, genuinely, it is a problem in my process. That's why I'm like, that's why I'm trying to figure it out. Billy Horschel and Dan Berger were two other examples of players that I was really high on at the Sony in terms of what I thought their numbers were starting to do. And I thought some strong play was starting to percolate. I had zero exposure to both of them at the Amex. I thought about both of them a lot, and they actually both finished T21 and were kind of living in the top 20 for the entire tournament. I gotta say, man, I'm trying not to be like a prisoner of the moment and overreact to being frustrated about my picks, but I'm probably going to go back to Sungjae and Tony. I mean, I really think that we're going to have some natural leverage on those two players. The degree of that leverage, I'm not quite sure. I mean, both of them have phenomenal course history. I mean, they're both 3 and 4 in my model. Sungjae already is getting some data golf steam. I certainly won't be there at the 20-1 or 18-1 numbers in the outright market. But in terms of like guys that I am hoping for will be demonstrably lower owned than Ludwig, I got to say my eyes are looking towards going back to Sungjae and Finau.
Yeah, so I'm pretty good at staying on my guys in all formats, almost to a fault, right? Like I will bet Gary Woodland 8 weeks in a row if I feel like I've seen anything from him. I think between Sony and Amex, those courses are pretty similar in what you're looking for, that it was probably a good week to stay on guys. But now from Amex to Torrey, like it's not necessarily that way, right? So like I'm definitely more inclined to hop off guys like Sanjay, who I was on last week, just because it's a completely different course. Now he's done well here a couple times, but it's been very putter heavy, and the sample that we do have from his data last week was pretty jarring with the iron play. And I think when you compare that to like Finau, who has better course history and better ball striking and a better course fit, I would probably take him as my number 3 after Aberg and Matsuyama this week.
So you'd put Ludwig and Hideki above Finau and M, and you would put Finau over M.
Yeah, I would actually have Finau very close to Matsuyama with a really large gap between him and Luddy, I think. Yeah.
Okay, and then as we get a little bit lower, I will tell you that my prediction would be the most popular start is Ludwig Zalatoris. The reason for that is, I think Zalatoris did, and we were talking about this in the Discord the entire weekend, but Zalatoris had kind of the perfect Amex to be a Twitter bet, right? He finished T13. The ball striking looked solid. He got shown enough on coverage. He didn't play well enough to the point where, he completely blew his load and people are thinking about a letdown week. But, he played just well enough for the number to drop, but the number not to be too crazy. I thought the 28-1 number was really strong. And I even talked about in the Discord, like this is going, gone. I don't think it's getting any better. And at the same time, I couldn't pull trigger. And now he still remains kind of on my short list as a bet. I think there's still 25s lingering, but you got a 28, right? I know a lot of guys in the Discord hopped on it.
Yeah, and I mean, look, there's a lot of stuff you could put it with Ohio State money line tonight, and now you're, up in the 30s anyway. So like there are ways for you to get, where you want to get. But yeah, I mean, perfect golf course for him. The only thing that can keep his ownership down and keep that, that build down is if people decide to flock to Jason Day over him, who has elite course history in, he finished 3rd last week with really good numbers across the board. So, but I agree. Aberg, Zalatoris, probably where I'm going to start, probably where most people will start this week.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think that Day is second highest owned in that range? Because I think you're probably right. I think I could see Day. I mean, Day coming off a 3rd place finish he has the best course history in the field at Torrey. Like the 2 best guys at Torrey over the last decade have pretty much been Finau and Day. Now, I don't think that Day is remotely the iron player that Finau is, but probably one of like the best putters of the last 10 years. Like he has found himself really comfortable at Torrey. He's still a great driver of the ball. I think it's probably Zalatoris and Day in that range. And I gotta say, I don't know if I'm overthinking this one, but like, I think Sahith and Lowry, I'm lighter on Grazerman, although he's a problem that I'm like, I'm learning how
we said last week, like
I faded him last week.
300. Well,
and
now
he kind of, but he played really well, man. And he did it the right way. Like he did it with his iron.
Some ethical golf by him.
Yeah, he had that crazy. They showed it on the coverage, but he hit an unbelievable long iron to like 7 feet on the 16th hole, and then of course drove the ball in the water the next hole, and still ended up finishing T5. I can tell you right now, I'm not going to play him at 9,700, but I do think that you have to put some respect on the name there. I don't know if I'm going to put him as my fade this week in the column.
I feel like I probably will, just because I think you can make better arguments for everybody else up here. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine the 2 lowest owned here are probably going to be Grazerman and Lowry, only because we haven't seen Shane Lowry. He just, hasn't been top of mind since, I guess he played TGL, but that doesn't count. But yeah, I think Day is probably going to push 20%. I think Zalatoris will be slightly above that, because look, you can play both. You could play both of them with Finau if you want to, right? Like you could get guys who start Finau, Zalatoris Day, and I feel like that's a very viable build this week.
Which brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
Is Shane Lowry the nuts? And this will be discussed. This will be discussed in full on the premium show, because I know Rishi and Kobe will hear the Lowry bat signal and flock. But have you looked at, like, I know he hasn't played much on the PGA Tour this year. Lowry's approach numbers on the DP World Tour, like, it's really hard to say that he's not one of the best iron players
I know
right now.
Yes, but you have to take that with a grain of salt, considering the field strength. My concern with Lowry, as always, is just the putting, right? Like, is this a guy you want to have 4-footers on POA all week? Probably not. And like, we'll talk about sort of the range below, but like, I think there's some really good pivots right below him, specifically Maverick McNeely, but I probably won't get to Lowry this week.
Mike and Devin, he won't. Lowry at 9K will not be highly owned. Even if I'm pumping him up here, it's still too steep of a price compared to guys that are proven commodities right now. Like, Mav McNeely and Taylor Pendrith have both been really good. And I think Taylor Pendrith, I'm considering betting Pendrith. But I think once you get down a little bit lower, like, I could see myself doing something along the lines of Finau, Sungjae, and then Lowry and Pendrith. And I think you are already you are quite different. You are quite different at that point. And I think you have a lot of options for how you want to play the bottom of the slate, which is never the problem for me anyway. The problem is choosing at the top, and I'm going to work my way into 18 different pretzels over the next 24 hours, because I think there are a lot of strong options here, but I do think at 8.8 and 8.9, Pendrith and McNeely, particularly Pendrith, are really strong options. Like, Pendrith finished 9th at Torrey Pines last year. He's a phenomenal driver of the ball. We know that he has a lot of approach upside. Like, his long iron numbers are never going to look great because there's some volatility in there. But you want to talk about a guy that, like, is a great putter from 5 to 15 feet, putted well at Torrey Pines last year, and kind of fits that perfect mold of long and difficult golf courses with a bunch of long irons. Like, give me Pendrith on that setup.
Yeah, I think so. I do think Pendrith will be owned. I don't think he's going to be low owned at all.
But that's why you can play him with Lowry, maybe.
Yes, and like with McNeely, like, I'm not a McNeely guy. I don't play him all that often, but he is a top 30 machine here, and he's better than he's ever been. And obviously one of the best POA putters, that we've seen. So he didn't play well last time out at the Sony, but was great at the Century. And I think, I feel like his floor is like a top 25 finish here. Field is not that strong. He's got the California ties, just very consistent here as well. So I will be in on McNeely for sure.
Looking at the entirety of the range, I think if I had to pick 3, and I want to get your 3, but I think I would pick Pendrith, Homa, and Aaron Rai. What would be your 3?
McNeely, Homa, Clanton.
Okay, so give me the Clanton case, because I think that's another one to monitor in terms of, like, for whatever reason, my numbers didn't love Clanton this week. I think a lot of that is just we don't have that big of a sample size on him yet still. So when you have one bad week at Sony, it's probably going to skew things a lot more than it should. But I think that's another example of a guy that all of us loved at Sony, me as well. He ended up missing the cut, and now he's kind of sitting there at the same number and the same price on a golf course that I would argue is maybe better than him.
Better, I think that's Sony. And I think that's the argument, right? Like, we know what he is. He is one of the best off the tee players on tour already, right? Like, I got the love for him at Sony because it's a very gettable golf course and a pretty weak field. But I think he's going to be the type of player who plays these courses much better, considering he drives it so well. I don't think he's going to pop up as a value play this week. Yeah, I just think it's a great buy low spot on somebody who fits the golf course very well.
And ownership in this range, probably Pendrith the highest.
I would say yes.
Homa's going
I
to get
could
some love.
I
Homa's going
could
to
see
get some
Homa
love.
getting some love.
Yeah.
It depends, because again, if you're getting people who are going Aberg Zalatoris, Homa sort of fits really nicely as a third. I don't think anybody's going to play Siwoo. I don't
I
think
don't
Aaron.
mind. I don't mind that play. Mike just brought it up. Like, I played Siwoo last week. It was a journey. He made a ton of birdies. Like, he definitely outscored his finishing position. And I don't think of him necessarily as a Tory guy, but he does have some okay finishes here. And I do think he has like the overall skill set to play okay.
And
here.
I think despite his awesome recent play, I don't think Harry Hall's going to get played just because he's 0 for 3 here in cuts. So yeah, I would say Ben Griffin, low owned, Rye, Siwoo, Harry Hall, and probably Clinton, all pretty low owned here.
Would you rather play Ben Griffin, Bo Hostler, or Harry Hall?
So the best play on paper is Bo Hostler. I will not click Bo Hostler.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I'm not.
I think he'd be the best play here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not strongly against Hostler.
I don't know what he does really well. Like, he's a good putter, right? He's got a great short game, and like that's sort of what it is. But like, I don't trust his iron play. He's not the longest off the tee. But I would say, with the course history too, like I would say he's probably the best of the three.
As a good opportunity, in my opinion, to hop off Harry Hall. Like, yes, I don't think you're necessarily selling high. I think he's actually fairly priced this week. I'm sorry, Dave. I don't love the course fit here. Like, I worry about the driver a lot on this golf course. And even at Amex, like, the one thing that Harry Hall did incredibly poorly at Amex was drive the ball. I still think that you can get around Torrey Pines chipping and putting your ass off. But I think the penalty for short and inaccurate driving, and then hacking a bunch of long irons out of the rough out all day, I think that some of his deficiencies that were able to be masked at a golf course like Stadium Course or Sony Open, he's going to have a hard time hiding here.
Yeah, like I just don't think he's any different than, a guy like Jaeger or Eckroat, and like you can save a few $100s playing those guys.
So you passed by my favorite in this range. Once we dive down a little bit lower into the high sevens, I'll just give it away for you right now because I feel like it's been a lot. I've been seeing a lot of Jaeger and Eckroat love. For me, it is all Thomas Dietrich and Doug Ghim.
Yeah.
All Thomas Dietrich and Doug Ghim. And Doug Ghim's a little overpriced. I thought Doug Ghim was going to be like 7.3, 7.4. But Doug Ghim was great for us last week. He finished T21 last week in that log jam. Plays really well on the West Coast. Obviously, he's one of like a phenomenal middle to long iron player. He's not super long, but he's still a good driver of the ball. And he's played well at Torrey too.
Yeah. My only concern with Ghim is just the upside, right? I just think there's a lot of guys here who have that top 5, top 10 upside. And like, I could see him finishing 19th or 23rd and like being fine. Like Thomas Dietrich, I think he has more upside. Jaeger has more upside. I mean, I would argue Daniel Berger and Justin Rose probably have more upside than Doug Ghim. So I don't hate the play. I don't think I will get to him this week.
Is it Jaeger and Eckroat for you? Because I think those are the guys that I've heard the most in the Discord this morning. And I'm not anti by any means. Like Jaeger, I bet Jaeger last year at Torrey, I finally ended up getting Jaeger's one of my guys. Like I love Jaeger. We were on him for the big Houston Open win. He was a big part of that single entry lineup last year. In fact, him missing that putt on the 18th hole, or I think it was 17th, killed me. Yeah. But he is unquestionably a good fit for Torrey Pines. Like if you think about what Jaeger does well, this is the type of golf course that Jaeger should be pretty comfortable with.
Yeah, he's definitely my favorite here. Was he leading at the halfway point last year? Is that what I remember?
He was all over the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah. I know he had a bad weekend, but
he had a bad weekend. He still had an opportunity to win the tournament on Sunday on the back nine, but he missed
definitely
a couple
my favorite
on the stretch.
I don't know if I'll get to Eckroat. I like Berger a little bit more. So I would say for me, it's Jaeger 1, Berger 2 in that upper mid 7 range.
I'm not sold on Eckert this week. I just
I agree.
I think and we'll start to learn a little bit more about these players once we get a bigger sample size. I actually don't think that Eckert is going to be like a long and difficult guy. I think that he is going to be really good at shorter middle iron driving accuracy golf courses like Sony and Wyndham. Like Eckert is a really accurate driver of the ball and a really good middle iron player. And he has done absolutely next to nothing on like what I would call the big four, you know, the driver heavy long irons, long and difficult.
Bay Hill, Muirfield.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't necessarily think he's going to be one of those guys that plays well on those courses. Kitayama, however, like those types of guys.
Totally different player. Yeah.
So, okay. A little bit lower. We now get to Kyle's number one play on the slate.
Nicholas Norgard.
Okay. Here's the thing and this is why I'm really glad that you and Kyle are both a part of ISN and in the Discord, because I get to a player like Norgard and I don't have the requisite data to really make an informed decision about him this week. Like he basically hasn't played whatsoever on the PGA Tour. So for those of us paying attention far more to the DP World Tour, what would be the Norgard case this week and why might there be an edge on him?
Yeah, I mean, obviously trending up, right? He's a very young Danish player, sort of fits that same model. He bombs it off the tee. He's a hard player to comp. But I would say, 2019, 2020 Wyndham Clark, right? Like we knew it was in there, hits the ball a mile, putts it really well. Everything else between, right? He could shoot 80 or he could be leading, after 54 holes. So, but again, this is going to be his first tournament over here since winning his PGA Tour card. So probably a wait and see for me, but I do understand the case in a course fit. I just, he's probably $800 too expensive this week, if we're being honest.
So his data golf profile, I really like the Wyndham comp call. He is like terrible around the greens, which is not a death sentence at Torrey Pines, by the way. Like I do think short game, we should mention as well in terms of course conditions. I think that it's going to be a little bit harder this year than it was last year. This is my one skill in life is predicting the winning score and saying how the golf course is going to play. Cause I can't pick the players right, but I can always get this right. Yeah. It's going to be a little bit harder than it was last year because last year it was soaking wet. Okay. So San Diego got a bunch of rain last year. I remember going to that tournament, walking around on Wednesday, the bottom of my shoes were soaking wet. It's not like that in Southern California. We have not gotten any rain whatsoever. So the greens are going to be a little bit less receptive. I think you're going to see a little bit lower of a greens in regulation percentage, maybe a little bit lower of a driving accuracy percentage. And I think that at the end of the day, when you have those conditions, the most bankable skill set that you're going to want is again middle to long iron play, and I think guys are going to miss a couple more greens than they did last year.
And that's what I would say about Norgard too. Like his weaknesses would be driving accuracy and around the green game. He's an okay iron player, not great. So like he's going to miss some fairways, meaning he's going to miss some greens, meaning he's not going to get up and down. So just not the course that I'd be looking for him on.
The driving accuracy, I don't care about at all because I think the fairways are going to be too difficult to hit for anybody.
He's going to miss greens, right? And he's just not a good short game player either. So,
yeah, I mean, is there anyone else in this range you want to talk about? Because before we get a little bit lower, the only other guy that I have circled to talk about is Justin Rose. And that was another guy who I know a lot of Discord members hopped on the 130-1. That number got sliced in half.
Sure. Yeah.
Phenomenal generational CLV on that. Like I don't even think you have to play the tournament at this point. If you're holding a Rose 130-1 ticket, I think I'm a little bit cooler on this version of Rose and how he's going to be able to attack Torrey Pines with the driver that he is now. I think he's just kind of like a little bit worse Jason Day right now, like a little bit less pop off the tee, maybe a slightly better approach player. But if you're getting a Rose smash, it's because you know, the same way that he was good at TGL. Like he just makes a ton of 6 to 10 footers.
Yes, I do think, and I mean, as we've seen with Justin Rose, he just seems to elevate his game in certain fields and on certain major style golf courses, this being one of them. So, but you know, I think on the flip side, that means he's probably a little overpriced and a little bit overowned. I still like Berger better, but yes, Rose is a fine option if you're different with your lineup elsewhere.
Okay, take us down a little bit further. Low sevens. I think there's some guys in here we like. Talk us through the low seven.
I'll just, so starting with the two guys who I bet this week, Harris English at 7,300 and Gary Woodland at 7,200. With English, you know, I have that 2021 US Open planted in my mind every time we come back here. And, you know, he shot that 68 and finished third on Sunday. So he also has an 8th and a runner-up a while ago. I think it was like a decade ago here. So obviously plays this golf course well enough. He had a very middling performance at the MX. I think he was like 43rd, but really good off the tee. He gained in all 4 strokes gained categories, I believe. So I just felt 100 to 1 for a guy like that in a field that really isn't very strong. I just think there's a lot of upside there. But he's probably a better bet than a DK play, but I'm
going to do both too. I don't know if I'm going to bet him. I may end up betting him. I need to see where the wind blows this afternoon, but I'm 100% in on Gary.
Of course. I mean, and it's been a while since he played this golf course well, but like there was a time, you know, where he was a top 10 machine here. He strikes it, ball striking as good as anybody here. He finished tied for 16th at Sony. He had a 9th at the Shriners in the fall, 16th at the Sanderson Farms, and all of that was with really good ball striking. So I think, again, you know, he's 100 to 1, and we know the talent is there. We know what he's coming back from, and I will continue to be early on Gary Woodland on courses that he's played well at, especially at triple digits and a low 7 price tag.
The guys that I would add, I'm with you on both of them. English has been kind of like sneaky phenomenal at long and difficult golf courses. Like he has, I mean, he has a 4th at the Torrey Pines US Open, you know, like he also, if we're talking, you know, long and difficult with very narrow fairways, English like contended at Winged Foot.
He's kind of like Russell Henley that way, where like you look at a major leaderboard, you're like, Russell Henley was 4th. When did that happen? Yeah.
The guys that I would add in the low 7s to the mix, I like Michael Ghim here. He made the cut on the number last week. I know that Rishi was super heavy on Ghim. He was in the single entry lineup that had a real shot for me on Sunday that I was tracking in person. It was Michael Ghim and Nick Hardy at the bottom of that lineup. I'll never forget. And Ghim kind of pooped all over his leg on Sunday, to be honest with you.
Sure.
But this is a very meaningful event to him. He played high school matches at Torrey Pines. And he has the long iron play, I think, to get around here. Like he knows this golf course very well. I think he's going to make the cut. I don't, you know, he was actually like living in the top 20 for a lot of that tournament. But I think I'm 100% going to play Michael Ghim at Torrey Pines. And it's just a good play. And then the other guy that I would mention too is Sam Stevens.
Yeah, tends to do well on long courses. Yeah, so a few other names down here, and like I'm just focused on a certain skill set, which is like you can putt and make birdies, but you hit the ball far. Like I would say Michael Thorbjornsen with the California ties makes a lot of sense here. Sam Stevens a little bit. A little torn on Rico Hoey because I just don't think he's that good of a golfer, but he fits here. And then 1 Euro play here, Jesper Svensson. So again, people don't know a lot about him. Obviously won his tour card last year. He is like,
he's an amazing putter
and driver, right? He is a legit off the tee king. I think like if he was like tied 7th this week, people would be like, who's that guy? Like, yeah, I think he makes a lot of sense.
I would also give Alex Smalley a shout, who, I mean, there's so many guys I love down here. Like we'd even mentioned Vegas and Hoffman.
Yeah. Smalley, like I know that Smalley and play Smalley more than anybody, but like he's a repeat offender, right? You get a Smalley golf course and Smalley is going to show up. Like I don't necessarily want to, but like he has awesome course history at the Amex. Obviously, we'll play him at Wyndham and stuff like that. So probably won't chase him here, but he was great last week.
Yeah, I should probably jump off the Smalley train. Like you can't ask for much more from Smalley than what he gave.
We'll be in
us
Puerto
last
Rico
week.
soon, and you can get right back on.
Yeah, I think Smalley asking for that Smalley performance 2 weeks in a row might be a little ambitious as well. Okay, finish us off here in the sixes. Okay, some gummy play potentials. We had the most like ridiculous slew. Who was your gummy play last week?
Ryan Gerard made the cut.
Didn't he play?
Borderline.
Yeah, didn't he play well wasn't he like making a charge? I feel like every single one of our gummy plays, like Blades Brown was 9 under through 13 at one point. Obviously, William Mao, we'll live on in infamy. Like we will always have William Mao at the Amex for Kyle and that shot tracker on the 16th hole. Schmid, I thought like could contend to win the golf tournament on Thursday. Like he shot 8 under, looked absolutely unstoppable.
He was rolling.
Missed the cut.
Yeah. No, I mean, Ryan Gerard did what I thought. Like he gained with approach, he gained with the putter. He just couldn't make enough birdies over the weekend. Look, I mean, made the cut. He didn't hurt my DK team. That was Tom Kim and Sung Jae. So, gummies were good. So I'm going to leave Joseph Bramlett for you, but I do have interest. I think for me, again, it's about the type of player that I'm looking for. So like elite upside, bombs it off the tee. And I landed on the two guys that we were talking about last night. So one is Jake Knapp. Been battling a back injury for almost 8 months now. He shot -7 last week, so he missed the cut. But again, like that's enough. He shot 65 in the third round. So like there's something there. He finished third here last year. I had kind of forgotten that, but he finished third, and then we bet him, and then he won at Mexico. But obviously from California, has played this golf course a zillion times. Like he was 600 to 1. Like I would bet him like the full ladder, top 40, top 30, top 20, like whatever you want to get on him now. And a great DK play at 6,700. And then the other one's Vincent Norman. We were high on him last year
here because I think that was another guy that got smashed pretty early. And honestly, the number that you got on Norman, 450 to 1, was the number that I was expecting on Bramlett. Like, how is Bram? First of all, Bramlett got hit too this morning. I talked about him a bunch and stuff, but it wasn't like there was insane like Discord enthusiasm around like you're so right about Bramlett, dude. Like so it's not just me pumping him. He got hit from 150
he's got
to 110.
He's got the California ties and he's got the course history, right? Like
did he go to Stanford?
He went to Stanford. Yes, went to Stanford. Has 3 top 25s in the last 4 years here. So I think that in itself, right, is
he's also just not on the PGA Tour though. And he's not he's not only is he not on the PGA Tour, like he's not a young gun either. Like he's just an objectively below average.
Lost his card. Yeah,
he's an objectively below average player that did not qualify for Q School last year and has not had a top 10 on the PGA Tour in like over a year. Now, I believe that his skill set is exactly what you're looking for at Torrey Pines. Like he is very similar to Luke List. Okay. Very, very similar to Luke List. So I believe in his skill set and I'll take my chances on the recent form, but I thought he was going to be like Norman cause Norman, you got at 450, right?
Yes. I mean, Bramlett's at least like, over the last year, whether it was here or Corn Ferry Tour, like he's been okay. But yeah, with Norman. So, I mean, just think back to 2023, right? He was one of the best up and coming young kids out of Florida State. He had a run. He was like 8th at Byron Nelson, top 20 at Mexico. He then won the Barbasol and then went over to Europe and won the Irish Open. Like he was a dude. He sucked last year, but the off the tee game was still really, really strong. And so again, you look now, he finished tied for 29th last week. He was basically the best ball striker in the field for the 2 rounds that we have. He made the cut Sony with a hot putter. So it's just like, you put those things together. He's made both of his cuts here. and he's 450 to 1. So like, what the hell? But a great DK play, I think, for the mid sixes.
The other guys that I would mention in here, I'm going to give Nick Hardy a deeper look because he was a guy that my numbers loved at Torrey last year. I always loved Nick Hardy at Sanderson Farms too, which is basically just an easier version of Torrey Pines in terms of and being Bermuda and being Southeast Bermuda. Like, Sanderson Farms is the same type of architecture at Torrey Pines. So, you know, if you can play well at Sanderson Farms in terms of visually how this golf course looks off the tee and architecturally, you're probably, it's certainly translatable at the very least to Torrey Pines. So I'm going to give Nick Hardy a closer look. I don't know why Hayden Springer was popping in my numbers. I need to give that a deeper dive. SH Kim was also kind of popping in my numbers a little bit. That might be a putting thing. And then we got some pot guider love as well as one of the,
I think there's I think there's
played well here last year.
Pot guider, like, right, he's the right style of play. He hits it 350 off the tee and has some upside. Just a few other names that out here that I would have in my pool. Right, I'll start with Sam Ryder. Has a 4th and a 10th here, which again, I don't even care about that as much, but it shows that, he can play this golf course. And he sucked last year until the fall, right? He was tied for 30th in Mexico, finished 5th at Butterfield, Bermuda. He made the cut at the Sony, was borderline top 20, made the cut last week. So like, there's a lot there. Same idea with Taylor Montgomery, just, he bombs it. He putts well. He's played this golf course well. I think there's some upside there. And then we were joking about him last week, but he has good course history. Ryan Palmer randomly popped up last week at the MX with a hot putter. Has 2 runner-up finishes here. So again, if you need to dumpster dive, I think you could do worse than Ryan Palmer at 6,300.
Palmer's been unbelievable at Torrey too. Like over the years, it's always been a Palmer spot. Yeah. I don't know how much is left in the take, man. All right. Final questions before we get out of here. Let's go through the chat, make sure we hit everything. 2 questions from my girlfriend, Ryan, who has off work today. What are your dogs, and are you anti Keegan Bradley? She's in veterinary school, to give some context on the dog. So the most exciting moment of the show for her today was when she heard dogs barking.
We actually do a lot of dog
I feel like a dog
sister.
Can make better picks for me at this moment in time.
We do a lot of dog sitting for my sister, my mother-in-law. That was a multi-poo, I think they call these things. It's like this big.
So the really annoying ones.
Yes, usually, not usually a barker, but no, with Keegan Bradley, I don't know. Is Keegan Bradley a guy that I want to play at 9,900 anywhere? Probably not. And he's not going to be low owned because he has a course history here. So
he won't be low owned. He won't be low owned.
That's the
Sorry,
issue.
Natalie. We don't like your Keegan pick this week, but
nope.
Good shout out Ludwig at the Masters.
Yes.
She texted me out of the blue the other night and was like, I think Ludwig's winning the Masters. Put money on it for me. So looking to go back to back after hitting Scotty last year, by the way, as well. Okay, right. RB, any closing thoughts for you before we get out of here on this Monday afternoon? Going for 3 in a row. Oh, is there a DP World Tour this week?
Yes, there is. It's a garbage field, the Razal Khaimah Championship.
Do you want to share any DP World Tour info? We've already had calls for a Kyle and RB DP World Tour show, which I'm not sure there's enough interest in that to like do a show, add a show to our 8 shows a week. But I think we should at the very least do a segment on it on this Monday show. So
so actually very
tour stuff.
Very similar to Torrey this week. It's a bomb. It's a bomb and gouge fest. Obviously putting is helpful, but I'm just targeting young up and coming bombers. Like, I bet Rasmus Norgard Peterson. I bet Adrian Dumont Deschamps. Like that's the mold you're going for this week. So, but there are some live guys here. David Puig is here, who I also bet. So, there's not going to be a ton of recognizable names for anybody who is like a casual. So I would just pick one or two of your favorites from, the 40 to 20 range and just kind of go from there.
Sweet. Well, your card is posted both in the Discord. I believe it's on Twitter as well. And we will be back on this YouTube channel tonight. We'll have back-to-back shows with Ryan and Jeff Feinberg, Brian and Jeff Feinberg, and then Twitterless Steve and Capper. So thanks for joining us today. As always, if you want more of Ryan and I, and you want all of the good stuff, which is the Discord channel, obviously, access to all of us for questions 24/7, the best, most fun, most ridiculous place to sweat your bets, the best hang, in my opinion, the best place for tennis bets, the best place for football sweating, and the best information and course breakdowns as well. It is all over at Inside Sports Network. So insidesports.com. Try it for a week. That's what I always say. We have weekly, monthly, yearly options, and try it for a week. I promise you won't be disappointed. So insidesportsnetwork.com, and we will see you guys next time. Cheers.
Thanks, Andy.